Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's Annette, your mental wellness warrior from the Mental Health Warriors. And today's show on the Power Hour of Self-Care, I have an amazing guest who's going to share about her traumas and her addictions and how she overcame them, and through her journey, learned about the art of future life progression. And she shared a little bit with me, and I'm sure you're going to find it very fascinating. So sit back, enjoy the show, and if you haven't liked or subscribed yet, please do so. And I'll be right back with our guest. And hello, we're live. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thanks, Annette, for having me on the show.
I would love for you to pronounce your name for our viewers because I have such difficulty.
Most people have. You're not the only one. So it's Olubnmi. Olubnmi. It's a silent N, so it's Olubnmi, which is gift from God. My family from Nigeria, so that's the name, Olubnmi. So everybody out there, you know what it means.
Pretty. So, well, welcome for joining me here. I appreciate it very much. And I talked with you briefly before about your journey a little bit, but because we're the group of us have guests on that want to talk and share about their journeys and their experiences and what they took from it, and how overcoming their traumas influenced you to go on and help others. Can you share a little bit about what that looked like for you, what some of your experiences and that, to just give us a little background on it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know how brief I want to make it really, but I
Share as
kind of
much as
came
you
into
like.
this. Yeah, I mean, I was brought up in West Yorkshire in England, and from a kind of strict family background. And when I kind of look back now, I noticed that my thinking was different, completely different. Going back to the age of 6, 7, I was a latchkey kid. So my parents worked really hard. They'd moved to this country, England, in a high ethnic area. They really worked hard to kind of really, put food on the table, roof over our heads. So I kind of spent a lot of time on my own. At the time, I was an only child. 12 years later, I had my brother and sister came along. But a lot of the time, I, go to school on my own, let myself in. Latchkey kid, as I said, I'd do my homework. Very, very strict on education. So I'd do my homework. And before my mum and dad came home, I'd have a little snack, and I'd kind of like disappear into watching movies and reading. And I almost like transported myself into a character. So I was always that kind of person who kind of escaped her own, reality. Even though the
Yeah.
reality was okay, it was good, it was a comfortable life. I always seemed to want to escape. Then sort of coming into sort of teenage years, I mean, food was an issue for me. And again, in that time, food became a little bit of a comfort when I was on my own. Being on my own, raiding the pantry when my mum wasn't there, that was what I did. And again, the behavior was very secretive. It was, I'd steal things, I'd pretend I hadn't. So there was always like something going on. There was something going on with me. I didn't know, because at the time everything was fine. Then I discovered alcohol at the age of 12. My parents weren't big drinkers at all. It would be Christmases, it'd be birthdays, and I was introduced to, small drink at Christmas at the age of 12, and I instantly felt fantastic. I instantly felt I could conquer the world. This felt really, really good. It was only just a small, and it wasn't a large amount, of just a small glass, and instantly I was,
Yeah.
that's my friend. Instantly, there was no
Oh,
question
wow.
about it. This is what is going to now take me forward. This is what's going to make me feel confident when I go to school. It was just there. And I know when I came back and I was studying really hard, I'd have a little drink. Then I got myself a Saturday job, and that money was spent. A little bit of the money was spent on alcohol. Very secretive again. Very, very secretive. It was my best friend. Nothing's going to take me away from that. I was very shy. I had a stammer. So for me, if I went out to an event, that was alcohol came first. So I could get over that shyness. And my parents moved to what I would say a middle class white area to get a better education for me, because where we were at the time, the education system had very low expectations of immigrants coming into the country. So they worked really hard to get me into an area where I could go to a good school. And again, that was the next tier of feeling different. I was the only black girl, a black kid in a white school. So immediately I was this kind of square peg in a round hole. And that kind of just triggered again my need to have more alcohol. So over a period of time, I had this dance, with alcohol. And it got worse, and it was a mixture of bulimia and feelings of not feeling good enough. Even though I was doing well, I still inside didn't feel good enough. I felt less than. On the outside, I had to kind of continue as somebody who was confident. My family would say, go out there, you're a strong girl, you've got to really stand your ground, don't trust anybody, don't tell anybody how you're feeling because they'll take advantage. So you go out there appearing strong, which is what I did for many, many years. And anybody
Yeah.
who would meet me would think I was very strong, very confident, but inside I was it was a completely different story. I felt very
Yeah.
scared. I felt like I was on a stay of high alert. I felt like I was in survival mode. Bit like a swan, looking very elegant above the surface and
Good
paddling like
description.
this, paddling like mad below. A lot of low
Yeah.
self-esteem, very sensitive to criticism. Just felt low a lot of the time, very lost. It was the nightmare. So I've managed that. Very high functioning, did well at school, went to university. But that's when the wheels started to come off when I went into my profession. And I just felt I was out of my depth. I felt, even though I wasn't, that's how I felt. So this disparity between what people were seeing and what I was feeling it was just blown wide apart. And alcohol seemed to marry the two for a certain amount of time. But then it was a case of, I'm going to try and stop now because it was so bad. And then trying to stop was so difficult, very, very difficult. In fact, I can say stand up, fall down 7, stand up 8. I went to rehab 7 times in 7 years. And it was finally in 2008 when I came out, and something shifted. You probably think, well, how come it didn't shift the first time? I was this strong person. I was supposed to be able to deal with things on my own. I don't tell anybody how I feel, because I was scared. I thought I'd be judged. I thought I'd be classed as weak. And that was how I was brought up, with the family, be a strong person. So I never really got the help I wanted. And I thought I'd figure things out my own way. So I kept a lot of things secret. I wasn't vulnerable. And last 2008 was my annus horribilis, I call it. And I had a DUI. I was up before my profession. I had a divorce paper served. It was a mess. When I came out of the rehab, this had all happened beforehand. And I knew something had shifted. I don't know what it was, but something was shifting. And it was like, by any means necessary, I'm going to recover by any means, no matter what happens, no matter if I lose everything in divorce, my profession, everything, I am going to stay well. And this is when I got really vulnerable. I went to get the support that I needed, to keep me. And there was people there that could love me until I loved myself. So I joined a fellowship to really get that strength, the strength, that experience, strength and hope. And I did what I was told. I just did what I was told, because my best thinking got me where I was time and time again. I was doing the same thing and trying to get a different result, and it wasn't working. So this is when I listened to people who had gone there before and really had, done really, really well. And then that kind of, I just knew I needed further kind of help. And this is when I kind of spoke to a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine. And I said, I don't want to ever drink again, a day at a time, as in the fellowship. But I was just scared. I was really scared. And she said, look, the doctors have suggested that I take Prozac. And I just knew, if I take Prozac, I'm going to be on Prozac. That's it. I'm not going to get off it, because I know my nature. So she said, come and see a friend of mine. She's very, very good. She'll probably put you at ease. And I was like, well, what does she do? And she mentioned she's a shaman. And I said, well, what's a shaman? At the time, I didn't have an idea what a shaman was. I've come from a medical background, and shaman, all this was woo-woo to me, and this isn't going to work, but I kept an open mind because I was desperate. And I saw this lady who's my friend today, a very, very good friend of mine, Anna. And yes, we had we had a session with her. She laid crystals and did all sorts. My eyes were closed, but I knew after that session something again shifted, and I knew that I was going to be all right. No matter what happened, I just felt very supported, very protected. I felt like there was a glimmer of hope. I could just see. It was, I can't explain it. It was just a feeling of peace within myself. But I wanted to keep that. I just thought, this is amazing. I want to keep this going. So I went to Anna a few more times, and everything was kicking off. Divorce proceedings, fighting for the custody of the children, court proceedings for a DUI. I was up before my professional bodies, even though I wasn't working at the time, because I had a DUI. They were informed. So it was just, everything was coming at me. But I thought, whatever is going to happen, I'm going to do everything I can in my power to stay well. Everything in my power. And this is when I started to latch on to the holistic side of life, the mind, body, and spirit. I never kind of thought about any other avenue apart from do this or quit this and don't do that and do this. But it was more than that. It was a mind. It was a threefold problem. It was a threefold illness. The obsession, the feelings of low self-esteem, the hole in the soul. I'm not good enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not intelligent enough. That was always there, always, whatever. Even if I achieved something, it didn't matter. I'd get top grades. It didn't matter. It just didn't feel anything. And that's when I thought, I really have to really seriously look now, and with guidance, and I'd say kind of a higher guidance, I kind of went into the holistic side. So I studied Reiki. I was very fascinated about energy work. I was fascinated about what it would do after experiencing the crystals. I thought, well, there's something in this. There really is something in this. I don't know what it is. And I started to look at, what crystals, how crystals worked. And that was fascinating. And I thought, this makes sense. And this is something that's an energy, it's a vibration. They have different vibrations which affect our aura. Then I started to look at the energy work with Reiki. I became a Reiki master. Again, the energy work, and the work what I was doing on myself was really paying dividends. It was starting to make me feel joyful, optimistic, peaceful, despite what was going on around me. Life was still life. I was still dealing with life on life's terms, but it wasn't I wasn't reacting the way I used to react.
Right.
If you know what I mean. So I wasn't being reactive to life. I was being proactive. That was the difference. And as I said, with my kind of mental health, it was a state of high alert all the time. And this was starting to give me giving me a gift of peace, that it was just helping. Then I went on to do other work. Then I became a recovery coach. I was very, very passionate about helping professionals such as myself who were going through
Was that
addictions.
like recovery coach for alcoholism?
Yeah. So I became a
Oh, very
recovery
interesting.
coach. Yes, I became a recovery coach for alcohol. Did intervention as well for professionals, and then I went on to, again, a bit like myself. There was always this relationship between food and alcohol. You know, whether binge eating, binge drinking, and this is what I was finding a lot in my clients. Again, I thought it was just me. But yeah, it was that kind of rocking, you know, backwards and forwards, swapping addictions, whether it was work, whether it was food, whether it was alcohol. You know, this is what happened with, you know, massive burnout. So I started to kind of study, you know, food from my own experience, but food addiction. I set something up around food because it's a quiet addiction for many. It's a quiet thing, not so much now, but at the time it was, you know, it was. And if you say to anybody, you know, and I saw it as an addiction, you know, the way I treated food was exactly the way I treated alcohol. So for me, before anybody even heard of food addiction, I knew I was addicted to food, certain foods. So I kind of set something up in the food addiction space. I became a certified European certified counselor, and that is what I've done. I've been coaching primarily at the time food, but then it was alcohol as well. And it's just this general burnout. I'm not good enough, and that was the underlying thing all the way through. Was this? I'm not good enough, and I have to be proving myself all the time that I was good enough to other people. That I was good enough I was good enough to my
Hello,
dad,
Adam.
my
Adam says
family.
hello.
Hi, Adam. Hello. You know, I was good enough. You know, I was always proving myself rather than being happy with who I was.
Right.
And that was the big turning point with me getting well as well, that I had to do it for me. Over the years, I was doing it to keep everybody happy, you know, keep family happy, keep people off my back, make sure that people accept me. I was busy scrambling to get well, so everything appeared normal, so kind of stop normality, and that wasn't the case. So I wasn't really honoring myself. It was always for somebody else.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you think that this I think the thing you said the most during what you shared with us was, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Do you think that was a learned behavior from somewhere, or did it just appear in your mind with your life experience?
I think when I look back, because I was always escaping as a kid. And it was like, oh, I love that character on television, and I'd literally act that person. It was like I wasn't good enough. That was from a very, very, very young age. And what I found very interesting when you talk about nature versus nurture, when I look back and I sort of speak to my families, that my, you know, grandfather was an alcoholic. And so there was kind of genetic thing there, but there's always this feel like that I wasn't good enough. You know, that person's character is great, or that person's great, but I'm not anywhere near their caliber, type of thing. So that always ran through my life, you know, until I worked on it. Yeah. So it was always like, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough. Then, you know,
So
if I
it's
didn't
like
get,
so it's like a voice in your head when you were comparing yourself to others.
yeah. And it's like, oh, you can't do that. You know, how do you think you can, you know, achieve this? Or, you know, forget it. You're not good enough, or you're not clever enough. So there was this constant little humming thing in the back. I also called her my little Betty. I used to call her Betty to say, oh, Betty, stop it. And so when I got into recovery, you know, Betty started to get quieter. But that, when I look at it, is the limbic system of your brain. It's the part that wants to keep you safe. And it's that
Yeah.
part, that's that addictive part that kind of goes, no, you can't do it, because it wants to keep you safe. So it's kind of a behavior which was supposed to be good to start off with, but has become this your nemesis. So
Yes.
quieting Betty was just accepting that it was just an illusion. It was just part of the brain's mechanism. It's part of your kind of
Right.
fear, the fear part of your brain, the survival part of your brain that's activated. And especially if there's a mental health, that's very much, your fight, flight, your sympathetic nervous system, that's you're on high alert all the time. And that's what I
Yeah.
understood as time went on through neuroscience. And it really made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But calming
It's
that
interesting how
down.
it
Yeah.
was difficult. Yeah.
Mm,
So it's very interesting how you notice from a very young age that one being a latchkey kid, I myself was a latchkey kid as well. And I remember the feelings of loneliness, that there was nobody there to say hello or
yeah.
prepare a meal for me or sit down and spend time over lunch, or your parents didn't get home till late. There's always that feeling of loneliness. And I
Yes.
think that developed for me a lot of resentment against my parents. I don't know. But uh and then I think it's connected where, with the respect to our mental health, how when we feel that way, then we need an escape from that feeling, right? So then the
Absolutely.
next thing you said was you wanted to disappear into the movies, and then you would escape, right? So I did the same thing. I had
Yeah.
a lot of escape methods, but it wasn't movies. It was more involved with music and dance. And I would do things like, get involved with the wrong crowd and let that influence me. And I
Yeah.
also too had major addictions to food. So all of these things fed into, I guess, our fear of being alone.
Absolutely, 100%. I totally agree. With my family, they were really, really strict. So I couldn't, as soon as I got in, I could not leave the house. So as I said, I
Yeah.
kind of filled my environment, my home, books, even listening to the radio, listening to plays, disappearing into a play. It was really,
Mm.
literally, I was another person every single day. And when I
Wow.
look back, it's like, wow. When you join the dots, it was primed. We were primed.
Yeah. I like the part where you were talking about being secretive about a lot of stuff. For like, we don't want to be vulnerable with our thoughts,
No,
so we have to be secretive both in hiding our actions and our thoughts.
totally. I mean, that was work in the end as well. That was work, but to keep it secret, because that was my best friend. That's what changed the way I felt. And nobody was going to stand between that, which means hiding everything, saying to people, I'm
Yeah.
fine, laughing, joking. Where inside it's like, just let me at the bottle, let me at the food. But I would
Yeah.
never ever crack. I would never ever let anybody in. I didn't trust anybody. Um, and
When
especially
did when
for
did
the
you learn
black
to
woman.
when did you learn to start trusting people?
I think the 2008. That was my last,
Yeah.
my last time, and I knew I had to open up. I had to open up. I had to.
Yeah.
That was otherwise it would kill me. I had to this time do it. I couldn't do it on my own.
Yeah.
I couldn't do
Did
it on
you
my own.
ever come out to your parents about your eating and your alcoholism?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but they knew in the end. I mean, the wheels came off. They knew. They
Mm.
knew everything,
Oh, because
and
of the DUI.
yeah, everything. So that's when it all came out, and it was the best thing. It was like a relief. I didn't have to hide anymore. I didn't have to hide the fact that I was scared. I didn't have to hide the fact that I sometimes didn't feel confident, or even though I looked it, um,
Hmm.
you know, I'm just Olubnmi. And it's okay, but it took me a while to feel that. I'm going to be okay. And so I am okay as I am. And that took a lot of work. That took a lot of work. It took a lot of
Yeah.
support, a lot of search. And it
Yeah,
doesn't
I
come
remember the
overnight.
no, my journey was very long as well. You mentioned 2008. Mine was in 2010 when I
Mm,
finally woke up and started realizing that my health was deteriorating rapidly
yeah.
from from the stress I was under, imposing on myself. It wasn't
Yeah.
even outside influences, because then I started to realize that there was this voice in my head, and this voice in my
Yeah.
head kept saying that there was something wrong with me.
It just gets you. It just gets you. But as I said, that is part of the addiction cycle. It's the obsession, that mental, go and have a drink, you'll feel better. Just one more, you'll feel okay. Or go and have another biscuit or cake, you're going to be fine. And then it's that kind of denial, and then you've got this little Betty going, go on, have another one, you're not good enough, go on, have another one. And it feels real. It feels real. But
Yeah,
that's something that you can work to quieten. You can quieten down that voice in your head.
yeah. So how did you make the connection between um okay, so you're on the road to recovery, right? I assume you went to Alcoholics Anonymous?
Yes. Yeah. I went to
Okay,
AA.
so I went
Yeah.
to Al-Anon because I didn't have an alcoholic problem. I had the food and I had the relationship stuff.
Mhm.
So I assume as you're coming out of the alcoholism, is that when you started to gravitate towards the shaman and learning about the crystals and the energy?
Yeah. Yeah. So as
Yeah,
soon as I came out of the rehab, I just knew AA saved my life, but there was something more. There was something missing,
yeah.
and I needed to find out more. So that's when I've gravitated towards the shaman. And as I said, it was just like a synchronicity. This friend
Hmm.
mentioned this lady, and I didn't want to go on Prozac. I wanted to do it holistically, you know,
Yeah. It's
everything, mind, body,
interesting.
spirit, the whole lot. I wanted to get well that way.
Yeah. I find it so fascinating that when someone is ready to let go of those fears and those addictions, it's almost like, what do we replace it with? And
Hmm.
for me and the stories I've heard from other people, it's always something holistic. It's not it's not like well, there are some people who go into a new addiction, like maybe they become a workaholic or some other kind of thing. But um, for me, it made sense to start getting involved with people that were like, what did a healthy, sane person look like, right? And it always was that I gravitated towards people that were into holistic things. So I think it's so key that we start at an earlier age teaching holistic stuff.
Oh my goodness, Annette, you've just hit the nail on the head for me. What I would dearly love is, for instance, the education system, sort of schools, even from like primary school, just learning
Yeah.
meditation from the age of like 6, 7, about mindfulness and being grounded, and even
Hmm.
teaching Reiki level 1, so kids can just self Reiki treat, being able to, there's so much I'd love to do, frequency, sound, all those things that kids would enjoy as well. They'd enjoy all that.
Hmm.
Starting from the
Well,
grassroots up would be so amazing. We
yeah.
concentrate on, I mean, some of the subjects, I just think, you know what, can we just replace them with something holistic that the children learn and they can do it? They can do it.
Yeah. I've noticed that when I work with youth with art mindfulness classes, and I bring my ringing bowl, and I bring my
Oh,
sand and different kind of techniques for mindfulness. They're so curious. They're like, oh, what is that? And oh, I love that sound. And then as I explained to them about the energy and the frequencies and how sound affects you, and kids sort of haven't been exposed to that, and they are really inquisitive about it. And
Yeah. And even
I like that.
crystals. And crystals,
Yeah.
kids love crystals. Love them.
Yeah.
The color, the texture, the feel. It's like introduce that into class, grip the classroom with rose quartz or something. And
Yeah.
selenite, just to calm kids down and get them to say, how does it feel when you hold amethyst, for instance? Or it'd be just amazing. And it's just, oh, honestly, don't get me started on that. I would just love that to be introduced.
Yeah, me too. And the other thing I really like working with kids about is getting them to do talk therapy, because
Mm,
kids have all this stuff bottled up inside them because there's so many stresses at home. I mean, their parent could be an alcoholic or drug addict, or, struggling with some sort of um, trauma from their past. And now the child is exposed to that. So
mm.
when I sit down and I talk with people, and I just ask them a simple question, and then it just starts to just like a total diarrhea from their mouth. Oh my God. And they just start talking, and it's so powerful, the things that kids will share with you.
Yeah. Oh, no, totally. And it's like just asking them how they are without, you know, related to a subject, but how are you? How are you doing? We're not asked that
Yeah.
enough,
And
are
the
we? Sincerely.
and the strictness of homes. Like, I don't know how, like you said, that your parents were strict. Mine were like, I was not allowed to date, and I wasn't allowed
Yeah.
to, be out after a certain hour. And I guess we're around the same age, kind of, but the culture from that era
21.
was
We're
so
21 still. Yeah, I mean, that culture it was all about education, being strict, not going out.
Yeah,
So maybe that added it to a little bit. But, I look back now and I thank my family, I thank my parents, and, everybody, it was amazing. It's just my head was just on a different track, me as
yeah.
a being.
Well, I think a lot of stuff that they teach us about not trusting and appearing strong is so that we can withstand all this stuff that comes at us. But sometimes it's better to just let our barriers down and feel stuff.
Oh, yeah. And that was every time I tried to do that, I found it alien. I found it very painful. It was, what would they think of me?
Yeah,
The Bummy they
yeah,
know is not the Bummy that's my nickname, Bummy, is not the one that's in there. So I was very frightened and I wouldn't let it down because the walls were up and they were going to stay up and I was doing all right, doing okay. And I wasn't doing okay. Nobody got
yeah,
to know me. No one got to know me at all. They didn't know what I liked, I would just reflect what they wanted because I didn't have enough
yeah,
confidence in myself.
yeah. And being put in that situation where you were just your cultural background and your color and race would be put on display because you're the only one in the school. I couldn't even imagine how that must have felt.
Well, it was pretty. I mean, I was bullied for a while. I mean, I was bullied for a good 6 months, the name
Wow.
calling and everything. But then I realised that I was taller than everybody else. I was quite tall, and I had a temper. And unfortunately, I did beat up the biggest bully in the school, and it was a boy. He called me a particular name, and I just went for him. But then people completely respected me. But then I went from being bullied to being a bully, and I didn't like
Yeah,
that. Um,
yeah.
so I've always had to wrestle with kind of that middle ground, but I never felt comfortable. But it was a difficult period in my life. But as I said, it's part of life, isn't it?
So you were a recovery coach, and then is this after recovery coach you went into the art of future life progression?
Yeah. Now it was quite. how this happened, how this came about. It wasn't I wanted to be a future life practitioner. It didn't kind of, happen that way. I kind of knew I wanted to, being a recovery coach. I love doing it. I love doing, food addiction counseling. There was just something, there was like, I was looking for this like pièce de la résistance, this kind of icing on the cake for my coaching. There was just something, oh, there's something delicious out there. And it was just by chance. I spoke to a friend of mine because I wanted to look towards working maybe with clients in the Middle East, very fascinated with the Middle East. And a friend of mine said, speak to this lady because she's got a lot of contacts over there. So, I spoke to Anna Josh, and we got onto the subject of future life progression. And I was like, what's that? And we talked about it, and just something just gave me goosebumps. It was just that when I know something's right, I just get the goosebumps. It's just like comes right through me, and I knew I had to speak. This was not a coincidence. I was speaking to this lady. I knew I wanted to something that was just going to really, make it delicious. And this was it. And future life progression is something that I find very beneficial for lots of different reasons. I mean, you can find future life is about finding your best future self, in 5 or 10 years' time. What messages can you get back from your best future self to embody and enact today to move you forward? And something just really clicked with that, and working with people with burnout, addictions, food, alcohol, because sometimes we struggle with the why we're doing this, why we're in recovery, and staying on programs. Sometimes you have to have a compelling why, have a massive reason why you want to stay sober, you want to stay food sober or alcohol sober or drug sober. And it was as though it would just crystallize that for a person, to keep them going on the program, to give them that hope, experience strength and hope. And I just thought future life progression was just like, bam, that was it. Boom, boom, boom. This is going to be a fantastic way for someone to find their why, to see what their best future self looks like sober. What were they doing? How did they do it? How do they stand? How do they walk? How do they think? How do they show up in the world? And all those things, and bring it back. And what did they do to be able to sustain the sobriety, their recovery journey, and bring it back? And you do get a perceptible shift, in that client, and there's that kind of little spark in their eye, and it's like, right. And to carry forward, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So for me, this pioneering dynamic tool, which just enables anyone to discover who or where they're going to be in a few years, is great. It's great. And it could be for, not just, recovery. It could be for health, wealth. It could be for finding your future home, dream career, life path, which is all part of recovery anyway. So it's discovering in recovery, which is what I call it. So it was just, I thought, I have to do this. And I just absolutely love it. And it's just delicious. And it gives a smile on people's faces, because recovery is supposed to be joyful. It's going to be fun. And I swore to myself, if I'm going to do this recovery thing, then it's got to be so good. For me, it's got to be so good. Better than, I was before. When I look back in my life now, it's just like I'm starting again. It's like I've got a second life, and it's joyful and it's peaceful, and I can deal with life on life's terms, and I feel good enough. I am good enough. Sometimes I still have to work on it. It doesn't always necessarily kind of, it might pop up in the oddest parts, but I know exactly what I need to do to kind of quell those voices.
Yes.
And just live a joyful life. And that's what we all wish. That's what I wish for everybody, to have a peaceful, joyful life. And they've got the tools and the strategies to move forward.
So does the future life progression, the people that are looking into that, to like curious to be involved in doing it for themselves, are they going through a journey of mental illness or mental health? What what kind of clients gravitate towards this?
Okay, I mean, I have, a kind of a site where it's, general people looking for ways forward with, like, say, their love life, soulmates, future home. And then in recovery, people have just come into recovery and,
Yeah.
they may be struggling a little bit with their program. They need
Right.
to find sort of something to give them hope. Um, whether it's binge eating, it's all sorts of different things, alcohol. But people have been, in recovery, even in recovery, but life just seems a little bit bland. It's like, well, you know, I've stopped drinking, I've stopped eating. Life's going to be really boring. My life's boring. And this is the most important time when someone's on recovery, then they start to think, well, is this it?
Yeah.
It's a day, and I do believe it is a day at a time, working things a day at a time. But you can bring that hope from, your future self, your best future self, and crystallize it in the now, and give you that energy to move forward. So, all stages
So
of
they give you
recovery, this is really important.
Yeah. So they give you a snippet of what they'd like their life to look like, and then you build from where they are today to where they will be
No,
in the future? Oh,
no, I don't.
no?
I don't build anything. They find it themselves. So I guide them through trance states. They tell me what they want to gain or learn from their future self, in particular aspects of their life. And then we go through
Yeah.
like hypnosis, trance state to meet their future self in, say, 5
Oh,
years or
interesting.
10 years or even 12 months from now. And where are they? What are they doing? And it takes a little bit of time in the session. It takes up to an
Mhm.
hour, 90 minutes. And they start to build their own picture of, who they are in a year's time, in
Yeah.
5 years' time, or 10 years' time, or the avenues that they took. What avenue did you take? What does your life look like then? So we look at various different life paths. What does it look like if you, first of all, what would it look like if you stayed drinking? Well, this is not a good future. What does it look like if
Yeah.
you, so they'll start, then they start to build a picture, and then they start, building that picture from their future self. What did you do
Right.
to get there? So your future self will give you the foresight, those messages to enact and bring back into the present time, in the present, and start moving forward. So it just gives you that extra color, that energy. You're seeing your future self at their very, very best, and it's so inspirational. It's so motivating,
It
and it's
sounds
fantastic.
fascinating.
Yeah. So people can
Cool.
look at various aspects of their life. Someone who's going through divorce, you know, there's all different aspects of somebody's life that you can touch upon.
Nice. That's got me really curious.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It is
So,
brilliant. I found my future home this way.
cool.
Yeah.
Um, so since my show is the Power Hour of Self-Care, so do you think there's what do you think is the best thing for self-care for oneself when they're going through giving up alcohol? Like, I'd like viewers to be able to see what, maybe you can give us a snapshot of what kind of self-care you did while you were giving up the addiction.
Ooh, I gave myself like a huge dollop of self-love, self-compassion, let myself off the hook. Really checking
Yeah.
my stories. Is this true? Is this not? My main my biggest thing was celebrating little wins every day.
Oh, that's
Um,
a good one.
yeah, little tiny wins, even if I was, you know, how can I describe it? Like when I first came into recovery, proper recovery this time, it was even just making my bed, and that's all I could do for the day. And that was an act of self-care. Being able to feel grateful for things. Self-care was just giving time out, journaling, reading lovely books, meditation, having a lovely playlist of music which was uplifting, just little things was my self-care, having time away to do these things. Time is precious, and many of us have really put ourselves last, and it was putting myself first
Yeah.
to do these things, just to build up bit by bit by bit. Crystals were my thing, so I would, grab a crystal and meditate. That was my little bit of self-care, or treat myself to a lovely bath with salts and listen to music. And these are all the things I never did because I didn't think I deserved
Yeah.
them. I didn't think I was worthy to have self-care. So just do one thing that you really can do consistently every day.
Yeah.
Even have that little
I found
sacred
it
hour.
difficult in the beginning. Like I found it difficult in the beginning to give myself self-care when I
Yeah,
recognized, well, when I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder.
yeah,
And first of all, I had to learn what that was because I had no idea. But starting to implement the self-care was foreign. Like you're so used to relying on the substances or the addictive
exactly.
behavior,
Mm,
and then when you're starting to let them go and try to replace it with something new, as you start replacing it, it becomes a habit. So
yes,
the habit
it's
for me is like I have the same as you, like the journaling and the meditation, and I have my crystals sitting on my desk here, and I'll pick
what's your
them up. And
crystal? What's
my
your favorite
favorite is
crystal?
malachite.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah,
Very protective.
yeah,
Very protective. But
yes,
it's just doing one thing every single day and just saying I am enough. I sometimes just used to look in the mirror, and I
yes,
was instructed to do this and look in the mirror every morning when I'm brushing my teeth and just go, Olubnmi, you're good enough. I love you. I forgive you. Forgiveness was a very tough
yeah,
one for me. Self-forgiveness.
yeah,
Yeah, that was a oof, but I would do it every day, and that's what I would do. I would just few minutes, I love you. I think you've been brilliant, and then I celebrate you for, I forgive you for, and it's
yeah,
okay to be you. It's okay. The good, the bad, the mad, the glad. It's all you. It's fine. It's fine.
yeah, yeah. It's so beautiful to hear that you're able to do that. I did the same thing. Look in the mirror. I love you. You're gonna have a beautiful day,
Yeah.
and then the other thing is the gratitude, like you'd mentioned. Today, I found myself walking around the house, and I turn on and off the light. I'm grateful for electricity, or I go
Yeah.
into the kitchen and pick up a knife. I'm grateful for this knife.
Little
This
things.
like when somebody's really struggling, I notice you can find like next to nothing to be grateful for. But when you finally come out of that dark place and accepted yourself and loved yourself, you can be grateful for the simplest thing, like a pen.
Totally, totally. But
Yeah,
it is just getting into that little habit of just, and
yeah,
at first it might feel foreign and alien, and why am I doing
yeah,
this? But it's worked for so many people before. That's how I saw it, that if it's worked for you, it's going to work for me. And I'm just going to keep doing
yeah,
it. Even though some days you're like, oh, I don't really know. And then after a while, it's like, oh, actually, yeah, I am grateful for
yeah.
this. I am grateful for that. And then life starts to take on color, doesn't it? And,
Yes.
you know,
And you start
and
getting
a
those
little bit of
feelings
joy.
instead of those icky feelings. You get those nice vibrational feelings of, oh, what's that? It feels good.
Yeah. And also being able to sit in discomfort after a while.
Yes.
Sit in
Yeah.
discomfort and thinking it's all right. It's okay.
Mhm.
That'll pass. This too shall pass. It's okay.
Yes. That was my
You
favorite
know.
when I was going through Al-Anon. This too shall pass. And it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Right. But then,
Yeah.
when
And
we're deep in it, it doesn't feel like it. But when you're coming through to the other side, it's amazing.
yeah. I
Obami,
mean, I was just gonna say, yeah, go on.
can you share with our viewers how to reach you if they want to find out more about your practice, and how they can get a future life?
Yeah, okay. So I have a website, www.yourfuturelife.co.uk. and you can contact me through there. I have some wonderful sessions that we can implement. They're called Signature to Success. Signature to Success. Because what we're doing is finding the essence, your soul aligned messages from future self and bringing it back. And it's just wonderful. It's just a real wonderful part of your recovery journey. And we all deserve to recover in the best possible, joyful way. As I said, if recovery wasn't joyful, I wouldn't be doing it. And honestly, and helping other people as well. That's a big thing. Even when you're in early days, AA kind
Yeah.
of instilled that into me. But, be part of something where you give back to somebody and you just feel
Yeah.
so much better, don't you? Even if you're struggling, really pick up that phone to somebody else or just ask somebody how they are. Really doing that that's about connection. When we're in
Yeah.
when we're, mental health is suffering, we isolate ourselves, we kind of withdraw. So connecting, be part of a group, join something that's going to make you feel part of something that you can actually offer and give back as well. No matter how bad you are, you give back. And that's something that AA taught me, that you can do that from the get-go. That really is good. It's really empowering.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, what would you say to the viewers after what you've been through and where you are today, but you kind of summed it all up.
I would say there's hope. There's hope. No matter
Oh
how
yeah,
far you've gone, there is hope. And just be able to go
absolutely.
reach out, do
Yeah.
whatever you
And
need to do.
every show that we do and every guest that comes on to the Mental Health Warriors is part of ending the stigma. Like, you know, that saying is so huge. I'm not good enough.
Yeah,
It's sort of like a stigma in itself. And it gets us into this journey of mental illness that is so hard to break.
it
And
is.
I went to a study at a university once, and they talked about, did mental illness come before the addiction, or did addiction cause the mental illness? And for me, it's always been that the mental illness causes the addiction, because there's something wrong in our lives that pushes us into the addiction.
Yeah.
Why would we pick up an addiction in the first place if there wasn't something wrong?
Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
I agree there. I agree there. And it is a mind
Yeah.
body, it's a threefold illness. But for me, it's amazing how we can recover and recover so, so well. And just give yourself
Yeah.
that joy and that space, allow yourself to do everything that you need to do to get
Mhm.
well. Yeah.
I'm so grateful for our talk today, and I'm so glad you came
Thank
on,
you.
Alumni. And I wish you much, much success in all your future endeavors.
And you,
And
Annette, as well.
thank you. And if you ever want to reach out to someone, here we have a wonderful person who can help you look into your future life. And who knows what you can create? Look what we've created.
Yeah. Get the
A year ago, I
inspiration.
wasn't on
Get the
Mental Health Warriors, and
motivation.
today
Yeah. That's what I mean. That's the joys of, getting well. It's like you would never, if I'd have said to myself in 2008, I've written a book. Oh, by the way, I've written a book that's coming out the 19th of April. It's called
Yeah.
Invitation. So check my website, but that's all about all the things that I do to keep well
Mhm.
and to keep your vibe high, because when you keep your high vibe high, then you are starting to invite the right things as well. I'm very much
Yes, you're
vibrational
attracting.
energy medicine. You're attracting, that wellness and the right things and people, kind of come on your
Yeah.
path. So that's coming out. But I just feel that, yeah, I wouldn't have written the book before. I wouldn't be doing anything like this. I'll still be just plodding along.
Yeah.
And
Staying in our suffering.
staying in our
And
suffering, yeah, wallowing in it.
yeah.
But it takes the discipline. It takes a day at a time. It just goes, right,
Yeah.
okay, just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Doesn't matter, just keep one foot in the other. Just know it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay. Just keep moving forward bit by bit by bit. And before you know it,
Yeah. You've reached amazing heights. And that voice in our head, I'm not good enough, no longer there.
No. Just flicker
Yep.
off.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Olubnmi. It's been a
Oh,
pleasure
thank
chatting
you.
with you, and I look forward to staying
My
connected
pleasure.
and watching your future stuff that you do.
Thank you
And
so much.
so,
Thank you. I
viewers,
really enjoyed it
thank
on
you for
here.
joining. And if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so. We also have a link if you go onto the web page or YouTube page. You'll see that there's some t-shirts. We have t-shirts and mugs now, which I haven't gotten yet. I'm in trouble. But, get mental health, and thank you for watching. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye for now.